Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Story involves the player on the screen right there, Dame Sarr. Interesting story. He's a player we talked about a month ago. Okay. If you're a diehard listener of the Aaron Torres pod, either here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, this was a player that really, again, it was about a month ago. Okay. So Dame Sarr, he's from Italy, played at Real Madrid, as you can see by the jersey right there. That's the basketball team, not the football team. And about a month ago, he goes to the Nike Hoop Summit. So the Nike Hoop Summit is one of the all-star games, the McDonald's game, the Iverson game, the Jordan Brand Classic, and it's the U.S. versus World game. And so the U.S. has DeBonsa, it has Cam Boozer, it has Darius Acuff, it has all these star players. And Dame Sarr played about as well as anybody in that game for the international side. Finished with 17 points in the game, 4 rebounds, 1 steal. I believe he hit a 3 or 2 in that game. And it was in that game that his name really started to emerge, I think, in maybe more college circles than in pros, because he's been known as a pro prospect for a while. But it was around that time that 2 things happened. People started talking about, should this kid seriously enter the NBA draft? But also, should he consider the college route? We've seen a lot of international players in the last year or 2 take the college route. Yegor Demin goes to BYU, ends up being a lottery pick. Kasper Siakashonis goes to Illinois, will likely be a lottery pick. By the way, I saw Isaac Trotter from CBS Sports did a really good article about there were some really good international players that stayed overseas last year, and it kind of hurt their draft stock because they got buried on a bench with a bunch of veterans. So Dame Sarr was kind of seen as, okay, is he that next international guy to come over to college? And in late April, it was just an interesting group of teams. Oregon seemed to really be in the mix. Kentucky, if you remember, Mark Pope was in Portland for that game, which I think that was supposed to be a recruiting violation, but I don't think anybody cared. I don't think you're supposed to go up to these all-star games. Anyway, I'm not turning Mark Pope in. I'm just stating a fact. Okay. But anyway, I think Mark Pope sniffed around. I think Illinois was sniffing around early before they went with the all Adriatic starting lineup. But then over the last couple of weeks, the recruitment got quiet. Then it felt like in probably the last 10 or so days, 2 things happened. First, we just talked about Kansas, and it feels like Kansas was in the driver's seat there for half a second. They were in the lead. I believe they had him on campus. But then something else very interesting happened over the last couple of days. It feels like Duke has made a major push on this kid. As a matter of fact, Saturday I saw that multiple crystal ball predictions were put in for Dame Sarr, both from 24/7 Sports. You can see it. That happened on late Saturday from Chad Linkins and John Watson, both Duke insiders. Then on Monday, we find out that Dame Sarr is actually on Duke's campus. And as I always say, by the time you watch this, he may be committed, but I ultimately do think he ends up a Blue Devil. Okay, so first of all, in terms of the player, really good player. I mean, we saw it in the Nike Hoop Summit. 6'6", super athletic, really skilled. I've been told that the shot is coming along. The shot looked really good to me. Like I said, I think he hit a 3 or 2 in that Nike Hoop Summit. But more than anything, that size and athleticism popped off the page. Offensively can get to the rim. Defensively, very switchable. And to me, looks very much like an NBA draft prospect, and I believe he will fit seamlessly into college as much as any freshman can. Listen, it's always going to be a process with freshmen. It's going to take time. Guys don't, everybody is on their own time frame. I get all that. But you talk about a guy that physically should be able to handle stepping into college basketball next year. Dame Sarr feels like he fits that bill. I think as importantly, I think he'd be a major addition for the Duke Blue Devils. And what's interesting about Duke, I give Jon Scheyer so much credit because I think all these great recruiters, and I would include Jon Scheyer, that people can say, oh, it's Duke. Jon Scheyer is a great recruiter. He's been a great recruiter, by the way, since before Coach K retired and he took over. He was the point person on Jason Tatum's recruitment. He was the point person on Zion Williamson's recruitment. But the great recruiters, I always say, they have a plan, and they have a backup plan, and they have a backup plan to the backup plan. John Calipari, as we're recording, we don't know if Carter Knox is coming back. John Calipari has a plan if Carter Knox doesn't come back. He's hoping he comes back. I think he's expecting him to come back, but he's got a plan in case it doesn't happen. Will Wade has a plan if PJ Haggerty doesn't come. Todd Golden, it feels like, has a plan, has had a plan all along for his backcourt with Boogie Flant. And so with Duke, what is interesting is this Dame Sarr stuff picked up after Cedric Coward goes to the NBA Draft Combine last week and crushes. And so if you're new to the channel or if you don't follow the portal stuff every day, Cedric Coward was a kid, interesting story. We've talked about him, but he was a D3 kid, transfers to Eastern Washington, goes to Washington State this past year, averages 18 and 8, 17-7, I believe was the point total, but he only played 6 games before he got injured. So nobody really saw him. He enters the portal, he commits to Duke, and you sit there and say, oh my goodness, he's going to Duke. They're going to be loaded. Well, then he goes to the NBA Draft Combine. He crushes it, and he does feel like a player that is almost certainly going to stay in the Draft Combine or stay in the NBA Draft, and frankly, he probably should. Listen, again, don't tell anybody that they're making the right or wrong decision, but that's a perfect example of a player that, in theory, could he help his draft stock at Duke? Maybe, but he's a fourth-year college player. I don't know. I think it makes sense for him to probably go. He has the size, the intangibles. He tested really well. He played really well. I don't know that he's going to go. If he goes to Duke, he's going to go from the 31st pick this year to the 11th pick next year. I just don't think that's probably in the cards for him. So he's probably going to go pro, which means that Dame Sarr is probably going to come to Duke. And all I would say to that is that, man, oh man, what an addition that would be late in the process. And it speaks to the recruiter that Jon Scheyer is. It would also speak to something else I was thinking about. So one, Duke to me would actually profile a lot like this past Duke team, right? Because you think about this past Duke team, and I'll be real, I don't have my way too early top 25 from 2024, this time last year in front of me, but I remember liking Duke, but I wasn't sure that I loved him. And why was that? You had a high school superstar in Cooper Flagg, a couple really good other freshmen, 1 or 2 returnees, and then you obviously had from there some portal guys surrounding them, and they were kind of an interesting team. Well, I bring it up because they ended up being a lot better than we expected. Number 1 seed, make the Final Four. And fast forward, if Dame Sarr ends up at Duke, doesn't that kind of sound like exactly the same profile that we're talking about with Duke a year ago? You have the high school All-American in Cam Boozer. You have basically a couple of significant returnees in Isaiah Evans, in Caleb Foster, and Patrick Ngongba. And then also on top of it, you have a couple other nice freshmen. Caden Boozer would stand out there. Dame Sarr would stand out there. You have Malik Brown coming back as well. And all of a sudden, that is a team that, yet again, what do they have? They're super big with a ton of positional size. You look at that roster. I mean, even Caden Boozer's like 6'4". And so you're talking about pretty much everybody's 6'4" and above, crazy wingspans, crazy athletic, crazy switchable on defense. And I think Dame Sarr this late in the process is about as good as you could do if you're Duke. And if you're Jon Scheyer, I give you credit. I'd say he pulled a rabbit out of his hat, but the truth is he's probably been working on this much, much, much longer than any of us realize. So we will see what happens. This stuff is always subject to change, but as we're talking, Dame Sarr is on campus at Duke. And again, the crystal balls are rolling in. I think this is one that could end very quickly.